Hello everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on punctuation in our Learn English Writing series. In this class, we'll be learning about the comma, one of the most widely used punctuation marks in the English language. So let's dive right in. So what is a comma? A comma can be described as a soft pause within a sentence. It is a punctuation mark that can be used to separate words, clauses, or ideas within a sentence. While a period is a punctuation mark that ends a sentence, a comma is used to indicate a smaller break or pause within a sentence. The comma was invented to help readers. It makes a written text clear and free from confusion. Without the comma, sentence parts can collide into one another and cause misreading. So let's talk about the rules on the use of commas. This is the first rule. Insert a comma before a coordinating conjunction joining independent clauses. In a sentence made up of two or more independent clauses, a comma must precede the coordinating conjunction joining the two independent clauses. The comma tells the reader that one independent clause has come to a close and another is about to begin. Let's take an example. Every child is full of wonder, but many grown-ups are full of skepticism. So in this example, this first part of the sentence is a clause. Every child is full of wonder is a clause. Then you put a comma and the but, which is the coordinating conjunction, joins the second clause to the first clause. So a comma must precede the but. Now, there is an exception to this rule, however. In the case where the two independent clauses are short and there is no danger of misreading the sentence, the comma may be omitted. So let's look at an example. He turned the ignition and we started down the road. So let's look at the 7 coordinating conjunctions in the English language. They are and, but, or, nor, so, for, and yet. Rule number 2. Insert a comma after an introductory clause or phrase. The most common introductory word groups are phrases and clauses that are functioning as adverbs. Such word groups tell when, where, how, why, or the conditions under which the main action of the sentence occurs. The function of the comma here is to tell the reader that the introductory clause or phrase has come to a close and that the main part of the sentence is about to begin. So let's look at this example. When Jenny was ready to eat, her dog sat expectantly before her. And let's look at the correct version of this sentence. When Jenny was ready to eat, a pause, a comma, her dog sat expectantly before her. So the introductory clause or phrase is this part of the sentence, when Jenny was ready to eat. So a comma must come after the introductory word group, a clause or a phrase, so that there's no misreading of the sentence. If you remove the comma and read the first sentence, it seems Jenny was ready to eat her dog, but the comma makes the reader understand the sentence as the writer intends. But let's take a note. The exception to this rule is to omit the comma after a short adverb, clause, or phrase if there will be no danger of misreading the sentence. For example, in a short while, we covered 10 yards. Rule number 3. Use a comma to separate items in a series. When there are 3 or more items in a series, they should be separated using a comma. The items may be single words, phrases, or clauses. For example, flock of sheep, pigs, geese, a white horse, and 2 ponies were in my farm that day. So in this rule, although the last comma after the list is optional, experts suggest adding it to avoid confusing your reader. For example, the first sentence is incorrect. Mr. Spenmore bought all of the company's property, buildings, and furniture. But looking at the second part of the sentence, the comma after the building makes the reader understand that the property, the buildings, and the furniture are separate items in this list. So looking at the first sentence, it seems the property contains or includes the buildings and the furniture, but adding a comma after buildings makes the reader understand that Mr. Spenmore bought the property, the buildings, and the furniture of the company. True. Rule number 4. Make use of a comma between coordinate adjectives not joined with and. Do not make use of a comma between cumulative adjectives. So when 2 or more adjectives each modify a noun separately, they are coordinates. Let's look at an example. John had grown into a strong. Now, in this example, we see that these three adjectives are coordinates because adjectives are coordinates if they can be joined with and. So in this example, we can say strong and confident and capable. So if we can include and between each of these adjectives, then the adjectives are coordinates. Also, if we can scramble them and change their position within the sentence and still be able to understand the sentence properly, then they are also coordinates. So we can say John had grown into a capable, confident, and strong man. So adjectives that do not modify the noun separately are cumulative. So let's look at this example. 3 small white mysterious objects moves slowly towards the shore. So in this example, we cannot include and between each of these adjectives, nor can we scramble them, because by scrambling them, the meaning of the sentence will be altered. So let's look at some examples of coordinate and cumulative adjectives. So the first one, coordinate adjectives. Joyce is a kind, intelligent, capable wife. Her son is a smart, honest, hardworking man. So in this first sentence, we can change it. We can include the coordinating conjunction between the adjectives and say Joyce is a kind and intelligent and capable wife. And also in the second sentence, we can say her son is a smart and honest and hardworking man. So this first sentence and this second sentence, they are coordinate adjectives. So a comma should be used to separate the adjectives when they are coordinates. So for cumulative adjectives, let's look at this example. Jane ordered a rich fruit layer cake. So in this sentence, we can't So the fifth rule, use commas to set off non-restrictive elements. Do not use commas to set off restrictive elements. Word groups describing nouns or pronouns, adjective clauses, adjective phrases, and appositives can be restrictive or non-restrictive. A restrictive element defines or limits the meaning of the word it modifies and is therefore essential to the meaning of the sentence. The restrictive element is not set off by commas because it contains essential information and meaning might be lost if it is left out. So, for example, let's look at this sentence. The salesman needed a new suitcase that was durable. So here, we shouldn't set off the restrictive element with commas, because if we should include a comma, it's going to alter the meaning of the sentence. So the salesman needed a new suitcase that was durable. So it's, if you look at this definition, a restrictive element defines or limits the meaning of the word it modifies and is therefore essential to the meaning of the sentence. So this part of the sentence, this phrase that was durable, is essential to the meaning of this whole sentence. The salesman needed a new suitcase that was durable. So in the above sentence, the salesman needs a new suitcase that is durable. Setting up the restrictive element that was durable with commas significantly changes the meaning of the sentence. So let's talk about a non-restrictive element. A non-restrictive element describes a noun or pronoun whose meaning has already been clearly defined or limited. Because it contains information that is non-essential, a non-restrictive element is set off with commas. For example, for the factory, we needed new machines, which were expensive. So this phrase, which were expensive, is not important or crucial to understanding the sentence as a whole. So the major part of the sentence is contained in the first clause. For the factory, we needed new machines. So this phrase, which were expensive, can be regarded as an afterthought. So if you remove a non-restrictive element from a sentence, the meaning of the sentence is not significantly altered. Rule number 6. Use commas to set off transitional and parenthetical expressions, absolute phrases, and elements expressing contrast. So what are transitional expressions? Transitional expressions serve as bridges between sentences or parts of sentences. They include conjunctive adverbs such as however, therefore, and moreover, and transitional phrases such as for example, as a matter of fact, and in other words. So these two classes of transitional expressions should be set off with commas. When a transitional expression appears between independent clauses in a compound sentence, it is preceded by a semicolon and is usually followed by a comma. Natural foods are not always salt-free. For example, celery contains more sodium than most people would imagine. So here, the transitional expression is preceded by a semicolon when it appears between independent clauses in a compound sentence. So the transitional expression here is for example. This is a transitional expression for example. Now, after including the semicolon before the transitional expression, you put a comma after the transitional expression before. So let's go on to the next slide. Transitional expressions that appear at the beginning of a sentence or in the middle of an independent clause are often set off with commas. So, for example, as a matter of fact, wealth can be built slowly or gotten all at once. So the transitional expression here is as a matter of fact. So let's go to the second example. Technological development may be necessary for independence. The fact for nations, however, is that acquiring such expertise demands discipline. So here, the transitional expression is however, and it's marked off with commas. There can be an exception if the transitional expression blends smoothly with the sentence and little or no pause in reading is required. In such situations, there will be no need to set up the transitional expression with a comma. So for example, Jack's car is broken, therefore you may have to walk to the store. Ordinarily, we ought to include a comma here, but if there is no danger of misreading the sentence, you can omit the comma. So let's go on to the next rule. What are parenthetical expressions? Parenthetical expressions provide supplementary information to a sentence. They also interrupt the flow of a sentence and can appear as afterthoughts. They should be set off with commas. For example, is it incorrect to write food as far as I'm concerned is indispensable? So in the correct form, you include a comma after food and after concerned because the phrase as far as I'm concerned is a parenthetical expression. So it provides more information about what the writer is thinking about. So it provides more information for the reader. It's not crux to the sentence. So food, the major sentence we read, food is indispensable. So this as the phrase as far as I'm concerned is a parenthetical expression. So let's talk about absolute phrases. Absolute phrases modify the whole sentence and usually consist of a noun followed by a participle or participial phrase. They should also be set off with commas. For example, our contract having been approved, we were at last able to begin construction. So let's go on to the next. Number 7. Use commas to set off nouns of direct address. The words yes and no, interrogative tags, and mild interjections. So let's look at an example of a direct address. Tell us, Mr. Anderson, how you were able to dodge those bullets. So here, the comma is used to set off the nouns in this direct address. So the noun here is Mr. Anderson. So you put a comma before and after the noun. Then let's go to the next one. Yes and no words. So let's look at this example. No, I will not be attending the party. We can also look at another example. Yes, I agree to do what you say. So always put a comma after yes and no words. So now interrogative tags. The food was delicious, wasn't it? So in interrogative tags, you put a comma before the question in the sentence. The mild interjections. Well, we have to devise means to help the youth succeed. So after the interjection, always put a comma. So let's go on to the next rule. Rule number 8. Use commas with expressions such as he said to set off direct quotations. So always include a comma before a quotation like this example, the queen smiled and said, comma, your daughter is very pretty. In second example, dust storms do not occur in all continents, comma, wrote the meteorologists. So on to the next rule. So use commas with dates, addresses, titles, and numbers. So most of these, I believe you will already be aware of. So in writing dates, the year is set off from the rest of the sentence with a pair of commas. For example, on September 2, 2002, a queen was born. But there are exceptions to this rule if the date is inverted or if only the months and the year are given. For example, the car factory started delivering cars on 22 April 2024. The second example, February 1999 was a fabulous month in my village. Now, let's look at commas with addresses. The elements of an address or the name of a place is separated by commas. A zip code, however, is not preceded by a comma. For example, the biggest city in Africa is in Lagos, Nigeria. And in titles, if a title follows a name, separate it from the rest of the sentence with a pair of commas. For example, Peter Lord, MD, has been named the Vice Chancellor. And with numbers, in numbers that are more than 4 digits long, separate the numbers into 3 with the use of commas starting from the right. In numbers that are only 4 digits long, using a comma is optional. So if you are writing a 4 digits number, putting a comma is optional, but it isn't optional when the digits exceed 4. So like the first example, we can write 2071 or 2 followed by a comma then 071. Both are correct. Then in writing 300,000, we separate the numbers into 3, and the same goes for 7.3 million. So the 10th rule, use a comma to prevent confusion. Using a comma is necessary to prevent confusion in certain contexts. For example, when a writer has omitted a word, a comma may be needed to signal the omission. Let's look at this example, which is a popular quote. To err is human, to forgive divine. So here, a letter is omitted here, but is replaced with a comma. Can you guess the omitted letter? The omitted letter is. So, but to make the sentence more crisp, a comma is used in the place of the word is. So sentence reads, to err is human, semicolon, to forgive, comma, divine. Also, if two words in a row echo each other, using a comma is necessary to prevent confusion. So let's look at this example. All the professors that could come, comma, came. Another application of the comma is to prevent readers from grouping words in a way that the writer did not intend. For example, tailors who can sew for both men and women. So here you can, if you omit this comma, it will read tailors who can sew for both men and women, which is not what the writer intends for the reader to understand. So what the writer intends for the reader to understand is tailors who can. There are tailors who are able. They sew for both men and women. So these are the 10 rules on the use of commas. But mostly, when you're using commas, you should be guided by common sense more than by any other thing.